Hi everyone. In this video, we're going to be going over the basics of movement. So basically, this is on chapter 3 of the Brain Facts book. I'm going to be trying a new format where I make small tidbits for every chapter, like instead of just trying to address the whole chapter in one chunk, right? Okay. So the first part we're going to go over is flexion and extension. So I went over this in the movements video, but I just wanted to make sure because the brain facts explains it a little bit more in depth and a little bit more with some examples. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how flexion and extension, right? So what is flexion and extension? Flexion is known as reducing the angle in a joint, right? Whereas extension is increasing the angle of a joint. So for example, let's take our elbow, right? Here, I'm gonna make it like kind of an orange color because that looks like human, right? Okay, so say this is someone's elbow, right? Right now, they are flexing their elbow because the joint, the elbow joint is small. Whereas if they weren't flexing their elbow, their arm would look something like this, right? This is called extension. They're pushing it outward and the joint angle is approximately 180 degrees, right? Because it's extended flat. Whereas if they're trying to flex it, their angle in between the joint is going to become smaller. So let's take a look at this example. Here, what the person is doing is they are trying to move their hand upward. So their shoulder joint is moving. So if the standard position is straight down, which is a 180-degree angle for the joint, when they move it upward, the joint angle, oops, okay, let me just draw that more clearly. So how you draw angles is basically just like this, right? So you have your line and your line. So this is the normal position of your shoulder, straight down. Anatomically, this is the right angle, right? This is the 180 degrees is the normal angle. But when your hand moves forward, your angle is going to, let me change my color. The pink angle represents the flexion angle. Your hand will, your angle will become smaller. If this orange angle was your original angle, your pink angle or your new flexed angle is smaller, right? You can see, oops, that's not very clear, is it? Okay, here you can see how the angle is not quite 180 degrees, it's smaller. That's why the angle, this is called flexion. But if you were to bring it back to standard position, that's extension, as we can see here. Originally, if your angle was here, right? This was your flexion angle. If you were to push it back to normal position, so like if you were to pull it back here, this is extension, right? And in fact, if you were to move your shoulder back even more, that would still be extension because your normal angle is straight down. And instead of your angle being smaller, you don't measure your angle from here, right? You measure it from here. So it would be greater than 180 degrees. It would be more. So that's why it's extension, right? And it's the same here with the knee joint. The knee, when it moves backwards, basically it's flexing because the joint angle is smaller. But when you return it back to normal position, it's extension because it's increasing the angle of the joint. So now that we've oriented ourselves with that, what is an agonist versus an antagonist? Okay, so an agonist is something that promotes the movement, right? It tells your muscle to move. But an antagonist is a muscle that stops movement. It basically doesn't want the movement to happen. Or better said, an agonist is a muscle that contracts, right? Contracts means to like shrink, or in this case, just move, right? And an antagonist is basically some muscle that relaxes. So think about it like this. If I don't want to do something, then I'm going to relax on the couch, right? If I'm too lazy to do my chores, it's because I'd rather be relaxing on my couch. That's stopping me from doing my chores. Whereas an agonist, it sounds like they're in agony, right? Because they're doing so much work. So they're in agony. The muscle is an agonist, which means it contracts. Because when you think of contract, right, it means like to shrivel up together, like to just crunch, right? So an agonist is in agony because it contracts and is doing the work. An antagonist is someone who's against the work and they're going to relax because they don't want to do the work. They're relaxing because they don't want to do work. So let's take a look at an example of this. So let's take our biceps example, right? Say we want to do a bicep curl, right? In this case, your agonist or the muscle that wants to curl is your brachialis muscle, right? So actually, this is a little unique because we've always heard that the bicep is the muscle that wants to move. Actually, it's not the bicep, it's the brachialis muscle. The muscle that supports it, though, that helps it, it's called the synergy, right? So, but for simplicity's sake, let's just say it's the brachialis and the bicep muscle. So in this case, for a bicep curl, I'll change the color. I'm getting kind of bored of orange. Okay, so I'm gonna write over here. So in a bicep curl, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. Sorry, guys. Oh my gosh. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Anyways, so your bicep curl, the muscle that wants to move, the agonist, is actually your brachialis muscle, but you don't need to know that. Brachialis muscle and your bicep, right? But the muscle that's stopping it, the muscle that's going to have to relax for this to move, is called your tricep, right? So that's the muscle on the other side of the bicep. So basically, if this is your bicep and your brachialis muscle, which are these structures and the structure, your tricep is behind it. It's like, you can't really see it here, but it's behind it. So your triceps are going to relax, right? But so basically for most movements, right? An agonist and antagonist work together to create super precise movements. So like when you're throwing a dart, right? Imagine you do it with me, okay? I'm going to describe it and it's going to help you visualize this a lot. So when you're initiating the movement, you're going to extend. So your tricep, you're going to grab the dart and you're going to pull back, right? You're going to do a bicep curl and pull back. So right now, the muscle that's working, your agonist, is your bicep, and your antagonist, the muscle that's relaxing for your bicep to curl, is your tricep. And then you're going to throw it outwards, right? You're going to extend. So the muscle that's working now is the antagonist, was the tricep, which is the agonist, because you're throwing it. You have to extend it, so you have to use your tricep. And what's flexing is your bicep. And because one is relaxing and one is contracting, what it does is it makes it stop really precisely, right? It just one has to start and one has to end the movement. Otherwise, just think of it like an infinite loop. If one didn't happen, one happened and the other didn't happen, it would just be like your arm would just keep extending, extending, extending. But stopping it is your antagonist muscle, right? So that, however, there are exceptions to this rule, and that's called co-contraction. So co-contraction is basically when your agonist and your antagonist contracts together. So there are actually very special exercises called isometric exercises, I believe, which enhance your co-contraction of the muscles, right? So I believe these are highly used in balance, and co-contraction is really important for that. So yeah, that's my video on agonists and antagonists. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment, email me, or take a look at the resources in the drive. I know I haven't been too diligent about those, but I've been updating them. I've been creating more resources, and they should be up there by the end of January. So I'm planning to complete all of these by the end of January. So all the resources should be there, they should be accessible, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye.